The Forest That Never Calls. Part 1, The First Clue. Chapter 1, The Invitation to Ashbourne. The rain was relentless, hammering the tin roof of Elias Kane's cabin like 1,000 impatient fists. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and stale coffee. Elias sat at a cluttered desk, his lean frame hunched over a yellowed FBI case file, its edges frayed from years of obsessive handling. The words "Case Number 4729, Unresolved" stared back at him, a taunt from a past he couldn't bury. A single lamp cast jagged shadows across his face, highlighting the deep lines etched by guilt and sleepless nights. At 42, Elias looked older, his graying hair unkempt, his eyes sharp but haunted. The letter arrived that morning, slipped under his door without a sound. No stamp, no return address, just his name scrawled in black ink, Elias Kane. He'd ignored it for hours, sensing trouble, but curiosity won out. Breaking the wax seal, oddly formal for 2025, he unfolded the heavy paper and read, "Mr. Kane, your reputation precedes you. Ashbourne needs your help. Clara Henshaw, 21, vanished in Gallowmere Forest 3 days ago. The police are out of their depth. Come quickly. Discretion is paramount." A friend. Elias snorted. A friend? He had none left, not after the disaster that ended his FBI career. The letter's tone was calculated, urgent yet vague, as if testing him. Ashbourne, a speck of a town nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains, was a 6-hour drive from his isolated cabin in Virginia. He knew of it vaguely, tourist brochures boasting quaint charm and hiking trails, but whispers of something darker lingered in his memory. Missing hikers, strange lights, a fire decades ago that locals still hushed up. He tossed the letter onto the desk, where it landed beside a half-empty bottle of bourbon. "Not my problem," he muttered, but his fingers betrayed him, tracing the words Gallowmere Forest. His mind, always restless, began to churn. A missing college student, a small town, an anonymous plea. It was the kind of puzzle that had once made him a legend at the FBI, before it all went wrong. By noon, Elias was in his battered Jeep, the letter tucked into his coat pocket. The rain followed him, smearing the windshield as he navigated winding mountain roads. Ashbourne emerged from the mist like a reluctant ghost. Clapboard houses, a single diner, and a church steeple piercing the gray sky. The town felt frozen in time, its streets eerily quiet despite the late afternoon bustle you'd expect. At the sheriff's station, a squat brick building with flickering fluorescent lights, Elias met Sheriff Martha Cole. She was in her 50s, sturdy, with a no-nonsense braid and eyes that didn't trust easily. "You're the guy from the letter?" she asked, her voice clipped. "Didn't expect you so soon." "Didn't expect to be here," Elias replied, shaking rain from his coat. "What's the story with Clara Henshaw?" Cole slid a thin file across the desk. "College kid, 21, went camping with a friend in Gallowmere. Didn't come back. Left her tent in pieces, one shoe behind. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Just gone." Her tone was flat, but her fingers drummed the desk, a tell. She was nervous. Elias flipped through the file. A photo of Clara, blonde and smiling, her eyes bright with the kind of optimism that hadn't yet been bruised by the world. "Witnesses?" he asked. "Her friend Tom Bradley. Says he woke up, she was gone. We've combed the forest, but Gallomere's a beast. Hundreds of acres, dense as hell. You ever been out there?" "No," Elias said, though he'd heard enough to know Gallowmere wasn't just any forest. "What aren't you telling me, Sheriff?" Cole's jaw tightened. "Folks around here don't like outsiders poking around. Clara's parents are big shots, own half the town. They want this quiet. So do I." Elias leaned forward, his voice low. "Someone sent me that letter. They don't want it quiet." Cole held his gaze, then looked away. "Do your job, Kane. Find her. But don't stir up trouble we can't bury." As Elias left the station, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the air felt heavier. Ashbourne watched him, curtains twitching in windows, faces half hidden behind diner menus. He lit a cigarette, the ember glowing like a tiny defiance against the gloom. Trouble, he thought, was exactly what he was here to find. Chapter 2. Gallowmere Forest and the missing Gallowmere Forest loomed at the edge of Ashbourne, a wall of pines and twisted oaks that seemed to swallow light itself. Elias parked at the trailhead, where a faded sign warned, "Stay on marked paths, no camping after dusk." The air was cold, sharp with the scent of wet earth and decay. He adjusted his backpack, loaded with a flashlight, notebook, and a .38 revolver he hadn't fired in years. The forest didn't care about his credentials or his ghosts. It felt like a living thing, waiting. Sheriff Cole had given him Clara's last known coordinates, a campsite 2 miles in. The trail was muddy, slick under his boots, and the silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig or the distant cry of a bird. Elias's eyes scanned the ground, picking up details most would miss. A scuffed rock, a branch bent at an unnatural angle. He crouched, sketching a faint footprint in his notebook. Too small to be a man's, likely Clara's. Nearby, he found a tree with a crude carving, a spiral bisected by a jagged slash. It wasn't random vandalism. The cuts were deliberate, precise. At the campsite, Elias surveyed the wreckage. Clara's tent was shredded, its nylon flaps fluttering like tattered flags. Her shoe, a single hiking boot, lay half buried in the mud, laces still tied. No blood, no drag marks, but the scene felt staged, as if someone wanted it found. Elias knelt, running his fingers over the torn fabric. The cuts were too clean for an animal. A knife, maybe a machete. His mind raced, profiling the scene. Controlled, intentional. Someone who knows this forest. He widened his search, moving in concentric circles. 50 yards out, he found a snapped twig and another spiral carving on a rock, this one older, weathered. Gallowmere had a history. He knew that much. Locals whispered of hikers vanishing, of lights flickering between trees at night. A fire in the 1970s had killed a family, the Graysons, he recalled, though the details were murky. Elias's gut told him Clara's disappearance wasn't isolated. The forest was hiding something, and it wasn't just her. Back in town, he stopped at the Rusty Nail, a dive bar where locals nursed beers and grudges. The bartender, a wiry man named Hank, eyed Elias warily. "You the guy looking for the girl?" he asked, wiping a glass. "Word travels fast," Elias said, sliding onto a stool. "What do you know about Gallowmere?" Hank's eyes flicked to the other patrons, then back. "Folks don't go there after dark. Bad things happen. Always have." "Bad things like what?" Hank leaned closer, voice low. "People disappear. Not just Clara. Hikers, kids, even a ranger once. Town likes to pretend it's accidents, but..." He trailed off, glancing at a man in a corner booth. Mayor Harold Grayson, Elias realized, recognizing the slick smile from a campaign poster. "Anything else?" Elias pressed. Hank hesitated, then slipped him a napkin with a scribbled note. "Check the old Grayson estate. Don't ask me how I know." Elias pocketed it, his mind already spinning. Gallowmere wasn't just a forest, it was a vault, and someone had buried secrets in its shadows. Chapter 3. Family Witnesses and the Web of Lies. The Henshaw mansion sat on a hill overlooking Ashbourne, its manicured lawns a stark contrast to the town's weathered charm. Elias was ushered into a parlor that reeked of old money, mahogany furniture, oil paintings, and a crystal chandelier that caught the morning light. Clara's parents, Edward and Lillian Henshaw, sat across from him, their faces drawn with grief but polished with composure. "She was a good girl," Lillian said, clutching a tissue. "Always hiking, always curious. We told her Gallowmere wasn't safe, but she didn't listen." Edward, a broad man with a banker's demeanor, nodded. "Clara was working on a project for college. Something about local history. She wouldn't tell us much." Elias noted their body language, Lillian's hands fidgeting, Edward's eyes avoiding his. "When did you last see her?" he asked. 3 days before she went missing," Edward said. "She seemed distracted, kept talking about the forest, some old stories she'd found." "Stories?" Elias leaned forward. "Folklore," Lillian cut in too quickly. Silly rumors about Gallowmere, lights, ghosts, that sort of thing. Elias didn't buy it. The Henshaws were hiding something, maybe to protect their reputation, maybe something worse. He thanked them and left, their eyes burning into his back. Next, he tracked down Tom Bradley, Clara's camping buddy, at a local diner. Tom was a lanky kid, barely 20, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous habit of cracking his knuckles. "We set up camp around 7, he said, staring at his coffee. "Went to sleep around 10. When I woke up, she was gone. Tent was ripped, her stuff scattered. I swear, I didn't hear anything." Elias watched him closely. Tom's voice trembled and his left hand twitched when he mentioned the tent. A lie, or at least a half-truth. "You didn't hear anything? Not a scream? Not a rustle?" "Nothing," Tom insisted, but his eyes darted to the window. Elias leaned in, voice soft but firm. "Tom, if you're scared, I can help, but you need to tell me everything." Tom's knuckles cracked louder. "I told you everything, man. Leave me alone." Outside, Elias was approached by Mayor Harold Grayson, a man in his 60s with a politician's charm and a predator's eyes. "Mr. Kane," he said, extending a hand, "I hear you're making waves. Ashbourne's a quiet town. We'd like to keep it that way." "Quiet doesn't suit missing girls," Elias replied, ignoring the hand. Grayson's smile didn't falter. "Find Clara, but don't dig up old ghosts. Some things are better left buried." As Grayson walked away, Elias felt a chill. The mayor's words weren't a request, they were a warning. Chapter 4. Elias Kane, the Excavator of Memory. Back at his motel, a dingy room with peeling wallpaper, Elias spread his notes across the bed. The spiral symbol stared up at him, sketched in his notebook alongside Clara's footprint and the torn tent fabric. His mind worked like a machine, sorting fragments into patterns. The symbol wasn't random. It resembled archetypes from Jungian psychology, a marker of suppressed trauma or ritual. But whose trauma and why? He opened his laptop, a relic from his FBI days, and dug into Ashbourne's history. The library's online archive was sparse, but he found mentions of Gallowmere dating back to the 1950s, missing hikers, a drowned teenager, and the 1973 Grayson fire that killed 3 family members. Harold Grayson, then a teenager, was the sole survivor. The fire was ruled accidental, but a grainy article hinted at arson, quickly buried. Elias's thoughts drifted to his own past. Case number 4729 had been his undoing. A cult leader, Victor Strand, who manipulated followers into ritual murders. Elias had profiled Strand perfectly, predicted his moves, but a bureaucratic slip let him escape. 2 agents died, and Elias took the fall. The spiral symbol echoed Strand's methods, a sigil used to mark victims. Was it coincidence, or was Ashbourne connected to his old nemesis? He visited the town library, a musty building staffed by a librarian who eyed him like an intruder. "Old records on Gallowmere," Elias said. "Anything you've got." The librarian, Ms. Harrow, hesitated. "Not much to find. People don't like talking about the forest." "People don't like talking about a lot of things here," Elias countered. She relented, handing him a box of microfiche. Hours later, he found it. A 1968 police report about a missing hiker, a woman in her 20s, last seen near Gallowmere. A sketch in the file showed the spiral and slash symbol near her campsite. Another report, from 1985, mentioned the same symbol. The pattern was clear: disappearances every decade or so, always near the forest, always hushed up. That night, Elias dreamed of the forest. He was running, branches clawing his face, the spiral symbol glowing in the dark. He woke with a start, his heart pounding. The letter from a friend lay on the nightstand, its wax seal glinting. Someone wanted him here, wanted him to dig. But why? And who? As he lit another cigarette, Elias knew one thing. Clara Henshaw's disappearance was just the surface. Beneath Ashbourne, beneath Gallowmere, something ancient and ugly was stirring, and he was the only one willing to face it. Part 2. The Undercurrent. Chapter 5. The Nameless Corpse and the Peculiar Cut. The call came at dawn, shattering the fragile quiet of Elias Kane's motel room. Sheriff Martha Cole's voice crackled through the phone, terse and shaken. "We've got a body. Gallimere near the old quarry. You'd better get here quick." Elias was already pulling on his coat, the weight of his revolver a cold comfort against his hip. The rain had stopped, leaving Ashbourne cloaked in a fog so thick it seemed to choke the town. As he drove to the forest's edge, the air felt charged, like the prelude to a storm that wasn't just weather. The quarry was a scar in Gallimere's heart, its jagged cliffs overgrown with moss and secrets. A cluster of deputies stood around a shallow grave, their faces pale under the glare of portable floodlights. Cole met Elias at the tape line, her braid fraying from stress. "Hiker found it this morning," she said, pointing to a patch of disturbed earth. "Not Clara, someone else. Been here a while." Elias crouched beside the grave, his gloved hands brushing away dirt. The body was skeletal, wrapped in tattered fabric that might have once been a dress. Female, judging by the bone structure. Maybe mid-20s when she died. The coroner, Dr. Ellis, a gaunt man with nervous eyes, was already bagging evidence, his movements too hurried. Elias's gaze locked on the corpse's forearm. Carved into the desiccated flesh was the spiral and slash symbol, its edges precise despite years of decay. "This wasn't random," Elias said, his voice low. "The cut's too clean. Post-mortem but deliberate, like a signature." Cole shifted uncomfortably. "Could be an animal. Scavengers." "No animal carves like that," Elias cut her off, standing. "How long's she been here?" Ellis cleared his throat, avoiding Elias's eyes. "Hard to say. 5, maybe 10 years. I'll know more after the autopsy." "Then why rush it?" Elias asked, catching the coroner's flinch. "You're acting like you want this boxed up before anyone sees it." Ellis muttered something about protocol and scurried off. Cole's jaw tightened, but she didn't contradict him. Elias scanned the scene. No footprints, no drag marks, just the grave and a faint trail of crushed ferns leading deeper into the forest. He followed it, ignoring Cole's protests, until he found another spiral carving on a nearby tree. This one fresher, the sap still sticky. The forest seemed to watch him, its silence heavier than ever. Back at the station, Elias pressed Cole for answers. "This isn't the first body Gallimere's coughed up, is it?" he asked, leaning across her desk. She hesitated, then sighed. "We've had, incidents. Hikers mostly. Never enough to make a pattern. Town can't afford a scandal, Kane. Tourism's all we've got." "Tourism won't bring Clara back," Elias said, "or explain why your coroner's sweating like he's hiding something." Cole's eyes flickered with guilt, but she said nothing. Elias left, his mind racing. The body wasn't Clara, but it was connected. Same symbol, same forest. He profiled the killer. Methodical, patient, someone who'd done this before and would again. The spiral wasn't just a mark, it was a message, and Elias was starting to read it. Chapter 6. The Torn Journal and the Forgotten Cellar. The next morning, Elias returned to Gallimere, driven by a hunch. The quarry was too exposed for a killer to linger, but the ferns trail suggested a hideout nearby. He trekked deeper, the forest closing around him like a trap. The air grew colder, the trees denser, their branches clawing at his jacket. Half a mile in, he spotted a ravine, its edges hidden by brambles. At its bottom lay a backpack, mud-stained but intact. Clara's, he was sure, her initials were stitched into the strap. Inside, he found a water bottle, a flashlight, and a journal, its cover battered, half its pages torn out. The remaining entries were frantic, written in Clara's neat script. October 12th, found something in the library. Old ledgers, payments to silence people after the Grayson fire. Why would they hide it? October 14th. Gallimere's not just a forest. There's a place below, somewhere they don't want found. I'm close. October 15th. Someone's following me. Saw them last night, just a shadow. The spiral, it's everywhere. Elias's pulse quickened. Clara had been digging, and it had cost her. The place below gnawed at him. He pocketed the journal and followed the ravine's curve, his boots sinking into the mud. It led to a clearing dominated by a crumbling estate, its windows boarded, its walls choked with ivy. The Grayson estate, he realized, recalling Hank's napkin note from the bar. The front door was locked, but a side window gave way under his pry bar. Inside, the air was thick with mildew, the floors creaking underfoot. Faded portraits lined the walls. Graysons, their eyes cold and judgmental. Elias followed a faint draft to a staircase descending to a basement. The door was sealed with a rusted padlock, but the spiral symbol was carved into the frame, fresh enough to suggest recent use. He broke the lock, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The cellar was a concrete tomb, its walls stained with damp. Chains dangled from the ceiling, their ends crusted with something dark. Blood, maybe. A table held medical supplies, syringes, vials of sedative, surgical tools. Elias's stomach churned. This wasn't a storage room, it was a prison. He found scratches on the walls, desperate claw marks, and another spiral etched into the floor. As he photographed the scene, a shadow moved behind him, a faint shuffle, then silence. Elias spun, his revolver drawn, but the cellar was empty. His heart pounded, his old FBI instinct screaming, "You're not alone." He backed out, sealing the door behind him. Someone had been here, maybe watching him even now. The cellar was a piece of the puzzle, but it raised more questions than answers. What had Clara found? And why was the Grayson name tied to every dark corner of this case? Chapter 7. The Forest Ranger. The Man Who Knows Too Much. Amos Reed, the forest ranger, lived in a cabin on Gallomere's Edge, a shack patched with tin and hope. Elias found him chopping wood, his weathered face etched with suspicion. Amos was in his 60s, wiry, with eyes that had seen too much. "Heard you're stirring things up," he said, not looking up from his axe. "Bad idea." "I'm looking for Clara Henshaw," Elias said, leaning against a tree, "and answers about Gallomere. You've been here longer than anyone. What do you know?" Amos's axe paused mid-swing. "Forest, no place for questions. People get lost. Always have." "Lost or taken?" Elias pressed, stepping closer. "I found a body yesterday. Spiral mark on her arm. Same as the ones carved around here. You've seen them, haven't you?" Amos's grip tightened on the axe, his knuckles white. "You don't know what you're digging into, Kane. Let it lie." Elias didn't blink. "Clara didn't lie down. Neither will I." The ranger's shoulders sagged as if the weight of decades pressed down on him. He led Elias inside where maps of Gallomere covered the walls, some marked with red pins. "Disappearances," Elias guessed. Amos spoke in fragments, his voice low. "Years ago I saw things. Lights in the forest, chants, hooded folk doing rituals. They called it keeping the forest quiet. Sacrifices, maybe. I kept my mouth shut. Had to. My daughter's in town. My grandkids. You don't cross the wrong people here." "Who?" Elias asked, though he already suspected. Amos shook his head. "Look at the Graysons. Always been power in this town. Always will. But the forest, it's older than them. Hungrier." Elias showed him Clara's journal. Amos's eyes widened at the mention of the place below. "There's tunnels," he whispered. "Old mining shafts, maybe more. I saw Clara poking around near the estate. Thought she was just a kid, curious. Then she was gone." "Did you see who took her?" Elias asked. Amos looked away. "A figure, hooded, near the quarry, night before she vanished. Had a knife, moved like he knew the forest better than me." His voice broke. "I should have stopped him." Elias left the cabin, Amos's words echoing. The ranger wasn't the killer. He was too broken, too scared, but he was a witness, complicit in his silence. Elias added him to his mental profile. Enabler, not instigator. Knows more than he says, but fear keeps him leashed. The tunnels were the key and the Grayson estate was ground zero. Elias needed to go back, but not alone, and not unprepared. Chapter 8. The Past Never Dies. In the motel, Elias spread his findings across the bed. Clara's journal, photos of the cellar, sketches of the spiral symbol. His laptop hummed as he cross-referenced Ashbourne's history. The 1973 Grayson fire was a turning point. 3 dead, young Harold Grayson, the only survivor. Newspaper clippings called it a tragedy, but a buried police report hinted at arson with no suspect name. Harold, barely 16, inherited the family's wealth and influence, rising to mayor by his 30s. Too clean, Elias thought. Nobody climbs that fast without blood on their hands. He found a reference to a 1970s group, the Order of the Spiral, a cult-like collective obsessed with Gallowmere's sacred energy. Their rituals, vaguely described in a local historian's blog, involved carvings and offerings to appease the forest. The spiral symbol appeared in faded photos, etched on stones and trees. The group dissolved after the fire, but Elias's gut screamed they'd never truly vanished, just gone underground, literally and figuratively. His thoughts turned to his own past. Victor Strand, the cult leader from case number 4729, had used similar symbols, manipulating followers into ritual killings. Elias had tracked him for months, building a profile. Charismatic, narcissistic, obsessed with control. He'd been so close to catching him, but a leaked operation let Strand slip away. The guilt still burned. 2 dead agents, their faces haunting Elias's dreams. Was Strand connected to Ashbourne? The spiral suggested it, but Elias needed proof. He visited the library again, Ms. Harrow less cooperative this time. "You're asking about things nobody wants to hear," she said, shoving a box of old records at him. Inside, he found a photo from 1972. A group in robes standing in Gallowmere, Harold Grayson among them, his teenage face grim. The caption read, "Local Historical Society, Annual Retreat." Historical Society, my ass, Elias thought. This was the order, and Harold was no bystander. That night, Elias sat in his Jeep outside the Grayson estate, watching for movement. The house was dark, but a faint light flickered in the woods beyond. He followed it, revolver in hand, the forest swallowing him whole. The light vanished, but he found another spiral carving, this one fresh with a drop of blood at its center. Clara's? Someone else's? Elias's past and present were colliding, and Gallowmere was the crucible. He was close, too close, and someone wanted him to stop. Part 3. The Hidden Face. Chapter 9. Confessions that came too late. The Rusty Nail was nearly empty at dusk, its neon sign flickering like a dying pulse. Elias Kane sat in a corner booth, nursing a black coffee, his notebook open to a sketch of the spiral and slash symbol. The bar smelled of stale beer and regret, the kind of place where secrets were traded in whispers. He'd been pushing hard and Ashbourne was pushing back. Yesterday's near miss on the mountain road, when a truck swerved too close, wasn't an accident. Someone wanted him gone, and Elias was running out of time. He'd called Tom Bradley, Clara's camping friend, to the bar, sensing the kid was cracking. Tom slid into the booth, his hoodie pulled low, eyes darting like a trapped animal. "I told you everything," he muttered, cracking his knuckles. "Why can't you leave me alone?" "Because you're lying," Elias said, his voice calm but sharp, like a blade hidden in silk. "Clara was your friend. You know more than you're saying, and someone's watching you, same as they're watching me." Tom's hands froze mid-crack. His face paled, and for a moment, Elias thought he'd bolt. Instead, Tom leaned forward, voice barely audible. "She was digging into stuff she shouldn't have. For a college project. Found some old ledger in the library. Payments, names, dates. Said it was about the Grayson fire, how it wasn't an accident. She showed me a page. Said it proved the town covered it up." "What kind of payments?" Elias asked, pen poised over his notebook. "To shut people up," Tom said, glancing at the bar's entrance. "Families of missing hikers, witnesses to things." Clara thought it was tied to Gallowmere, to those carvings. She was obsessed, kept going to the forest, even when I told her to stop. Elias's mind raced. The ledger was a thread, one that could unravel Ashbourne's facade. "Where's the ledger now?" Tom shook his head. "She hid it, said it was too dangerous to keep at home. Then she saw someone. Night before we camped, a guy in a hooded coat watching her from the trees. She was freaked, said he wasn't just some creep. I didn't believe her, thought she was paranoid. Then she was gone." Elias leaned back, profiling Tom. Guilty but not culpable. Scared, not complicit. You saw him too, didn't you? He pressed. Tom's eyes dropped. Yeah, when I went looking for her after the tent was trashed. Just a shadow, moving fast. I ran. I'm not proud of it. Before Elias could push further, Sheriff Martha Cole entered the bar, her face grim. She slid into the booth uninvited, her badge catching the dim light. We need to talk, Kane, alone. Tom scurried off and Cole leaned in, her voice low. I've been covering things up, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. This town, it's got strings and someone's always pulling. I've got something for you, but you didn't get it from me. She slid a USB drive across the table, her hands trembling. Old police reports, deleted from the system, disappearances, going back decades. I couldn't stop them, but I kept copies. You want the truth? Start there. But Kane, watch your back. They know you're close. Elias pocketed the drive, his eyes locked on hers. Who's they? Cole's lips pressed into a thin line. You already know. As she left, Elias felt the weight of her confession. Cole was compromised, caught between duty and fear. The USB drive was a lifeline, but it was also a target painted on his back. He paid for his coffee and stepped into the night, the fog curling around him like a noose. Ashbourne was a machine, and he just jammed a wrench into its gears. Chapter 10. Erased Data and Buried Evidence. Elias's motel room was a fortress of paranoia. Curtains drawn, door double-locked, his revolver within reach. He plugged the USB drive into his laptop, its screen casting a ghostly glow. The files were fragmented, a patchwork of deleted reports spanning 50 years. Missing hikers, runaway teens, a park ranger in 1982, all linked to Gallowmere, all marked by the spiral symbol. The reports were clinical, but Elias read between the lines. No investigations followed through, no suspects named, just vague notes about accidents or lost in the wilderness. One file stood out, a 1995 case, a young woman named Sarah Tate, last seen near the Grayson estate. A grainy photo showed the spiral carving near her campsite, identical to the one on the quarry body. The report was marked closed, insufficient evidence, but a handwritten note scanned into the file read, HG cleared. No further action. HG Harold Grayson, Elias was certain. The mayor's fingerprints were on everything. Using his old FBI contacts, Elias sent the drive's data to a friend in cyber forensics, bypassing Ashbourne's compromise system. By morning, the friend had recovered metadata. The files had been deleted systematically, every 5 years, by someone with admin access to the sheriff's database. Cole or someone above her. The pattern was chilling. Victims were young, often outsiders taken at intervals, their cases buried under bureaucratic excuses. Gallowmere wasn't just a forest, it was a killing ground. Elias's search turned up another clue. A 1980 geological survey, partially redacted, mentioning tunnels beneath Gallowmere, remnants of old mining operations. The survey was halted abruptly, citing safety concerns, but a map showed entrances near the Grayson estate and the quarry. Clara's journal had mentioned a place below. The tunnels were the key, a hidden stage for whatever the spiral cult was doing. That night, Elias drove to a secluded overlook, his Jeep hidden in the trees. He was reviewing the survey map when headlights flashed in his rearview mirror. A truck roared up, its grille filling the mirror before it swerved, clipping his bumper. Elias floored the gas, tires spinning on gravel, but the truck pursued, its driver a shadow behind tinted glass. He took a sharp turn, losing them in the fog, but his heart didn't slow until he was back at the motel. The USB drive was still in his pocket, a ticking bomb. He hid it in the room's air vent, knowing he was running out of safe moves. Chapter 11, The Farewell Letter of the Second Missing Person. The news hit Ashbourne like a thunderclap. Another student, Mia Larson, had vanished. Elias was at the diner when the whispers started, locals huddling over coffee, their faces tight with fear. Mia, a friend of Clara's, had been seen hiking near Gallowmere 2 days ago. A search party found her backpack, containing a note scrawled in shaky handwriting. I saw it in the forest. It's real. I'm sorry. Elias's blood ran cold. He tracked down the professor Clara and Mia shared, Dr. Evelyn Ward, a historian at the local college. Her office was cluttered with books on Appalachian folklore, her desk buried under papers. Ward was in her 50s, sharp-eyed but rattled, her hands fidgeting as Elias questioned her. Clara and Mia were working on a joint project, she said, the history of Ashbourne, focusing on the Grayson fire. They found something in the archives, a ledger, I think. Clara was cagey about it, said it was dangerous. I told them to be careful, but they were determined. Where's the ledger? Elias asked. I don't know, Ward said, her voice breaking. Clara hid it. Mia was trying to find it when she disappeared. Elias showed her Mia's note. Ward's face crumpled. She mentioned eyes in the dark, said the spiral was everywhere. I thought she was stressed, overworked. I should have listened. He left Ward's office, his mind piecing it together. Clara and Mia had uncovered the same truth, and it had made them targets. He returned to the Grayson Estates cellar, the air colder now, the spiral carving on the floor seeming to pulse. He found fresh scratches on the walls, a smear of blood, recent, still tacky. A faint draft led to a hidden panel, revealing a tunnel entrance, its mouth black and uninviting. Elias didn't go in, not yet. He needed proof, and he needed backup. Ward's name gnawed at him. She'd encouraged the girl's research, but her fear seemed too personal. Was she a victim or part of the machine? Elias added her to his profile. Potential ally, potential liability, knows more than she admits. Chapter 12, Twisted Truths in an Unthinkable Confession. Elias found Amos Reed at his cabin, the ranger's axe idle for once. The old man looked like he hadn't slept, his eyes bloodshot, his hands shaking. I can't do this anymore, Amos said before Elias could speak. They'll kill my family if I talk, but I can't keep quiet. Who's they? Elias asked, recorder already running in his pocket. Amos's voice was a whisper. Grayson, the mayor. He pays me to watch the forest, report anyone poking around. Been doing it for years. Clara, Mia, they got too close to the tunnels. I saw them go in, didn't stop them. I'm a coward, Kane. What's in the tunnels? Elias pressed. Amos's eyes darted to the trees, as if expecting someone to emerge. Old mining shafts, but they use them for something else. Rituals, maybe. I saw Grayson once, years ago, with others, hooded, chanting. They had a girl tied up. I burned the evidence after, like they told me. God help me. Elias's recorder caught every word, but he needed more. You saw the hooded figure again, didn't you? The night Clara disappeared. Amos nodded, tears streaking his face. Near the quarry, he had a knife, moved like a ghost. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Elias left Amos sobbing, his confession a crack in Ashbourne's armor. Back at the motel, he reviewed security footage from a gas station near Gallimere, obtained through his FBI contact. Most was erased, but one frame survived. A hooded figure, knife in hand, standing over a crumpled form. Clara, maybe, or Mia. The spiral symbol was scratched into the ground beside them. Elias's past roared back. Victor Strand's cult. Their rituals marked by the same symbol. Was Grayson a disciple or something more? The tunnels held the answer, but Elias knew he was walking into a trap. He loaded his revolver, taped the USB drive to his ankle, and prepared to descend. The truth was close, but so was the blade. Part 4, Peeling Back the Darkness. Chapter 13, Elias Sets the Trap. The fog clung to Ashbourne like a shroud, muffling the world as Elias Kane prepared his gambit. His motel room, now a war room of notes and maps, hummed with tension. The USB drive from Sheriff Cole, Amos's confession, Clara's journal, and the ledger from the library formed a constellation of evidence, pointing to the tunnels beneath Gallimere Forest. Elias knew he was close, too close. The truck that nearly ran him off the road 2 nights ago was proof. The machine of Ashbourne was grinding, and he was the wrench in its gears. He sat at the desk, his revolver cleaned and loaded, a recorder hidden in his coat pocket. The spiral and slash symbol stared up from his notebook, its curves taunting him. It was more than a mark. It was a confession, a claim of power, tying the disappearances to a ritualistic madness that echoed his old FBI nemesis, Victor Strand. Elias's plan was reckless, but he'd run out of careful options. He'd leak a lie, bait the killer, and catch them in the act. Using a burner phone, Elias contacted Hank at the Rusty Nail, knowing the bartender's loose lips would spread the word. "I found the tunnel entrance," he said, voice low, "near the Grayson estate. I'm going in tonight. Tell whoever's listening." Hank's silence was heavy, but Elias heard the clink of glasses in the background. Someone was there, eavesdropping. Good. He rigged a tracker in the cellar of the Grayson estate, a tiny GPS beacon tucked behind a rusted chain. The cellar's air was colder now, the spiral carving on the floor seeming to pulse in the dim light of his flashlight. Elias's heart pounded, his old FBI training warring with the instincts that had kept him alive since. He left the estate, parking his Jeep a mile away, and waited in the shadows of Gallowmere, the forest's silence a living thing, watching. At midnight, headlights pierced the fog. Two figures emerged near the estate. Sheriff Martha Cole, her face drawn, and Mayor Harold Grayson, his polished demeanor fraying. Elias crept closer, his recorder catching their voices through the trees. "We can't let him find it," Grayson hissed, his voice sharp with panic. "He's got the drive, the journal. If he reaches the tunnels—" "He won't," Cole snapped. "I gave him the drive to keep him busy, not to blow this wide open. You said you'd handle it." Grayson's laugh was brittle. "Handle it? Like you handled Clara? Or Mia? The Order's been cleaning up your messes for years, Martha." Elias's blood ran cold. The Order, confirmation of the cult he'd suspected, rooted in the 1970s, reborn under Grayson's control. He edged closer, the recorder capturing every word. Grayson's voice dropped, almost reverent. "The forest demands its due. Always has. My family learned that the hard way. Clara was nosy, like Sarah Tate, like the others. They had to go, to keep Gallowmere quiet." Cole's voice trembled. "I didn't sign up for murder, Harold. You said it was just control, power." "Power comes with a price," Grayson said. "You knew that when you took the money." Elias had enough. He stepped into the clearing, revolver raised. "Hands where I can see them," he said, his voice cutting through the fog. Cole froze, her eyes wide with guilt. Grayson's smile was a predator's, unflinching. "You're clever, Kane," Grayson said, "but you're out of your depth." "Am I?" Elias replied, holding up the recorder. "This is going to the FBI. The tunnels, the bodies. Your order. It's over." Grayson's smile didn't falter. "You think you're the first to try?" Before Elias could respond, a shadow moved behind him. A third figure, hooded, silent. Pain exploded in his skull, and the world went black. Chapter 14. The Killer Is. Elias woke to darkness, his head throbbing, wrists bound with coarse rope. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of earth and blood. He was underground, in the tunnels beneath Gallowmere, the walls rough-hewn stone, lit by flickering torches. The spiral symbol was carved everywhere, a gallery of madness. Clara and Mia lay nearby, bound and drugged, their breathing shallow but alive. Relief flooded Elias, followed by dread. They were alive, for now. Footsteps echoed, and Grayson appeared, his suit incongruous in the tunnel's grimness. Beside him was the hooded figure, taller, broader, moving with a predator's grace. The hood fell back, revealing Dr. Ellis, the coroner, his nervous demeanor replaced by cold certainty. "You should have left, Kane," Ellis said, a knife glinting in his hand. The spiral was etched into the blade's handle. "You're the muscle," Elias said, his voice hoarse but steady. "Grayson's the brain, but you're the one who gets his hands dirty." Grayson laughed, kneeling beside Elias. "The Order's been part of Ashbourne since my grandfather's time. Gallowmere demands sacrifices, blood to keep it sated. My family learned that after the fire. I was chosen to carry it on." "Chosen?" Elias spat. "You're a murderer, wrapping it in mysticism. Clara and Mia, they found your ledger, your secrets, so you took them. They were a threat, Grayson said, unperturbed. Like you, the forest takes what it needs and we prosper. Tourism, power, control, it's all connected. Elias's mind raced, piecing together the final profile. Grayson, the narcissist, believes he's chosen. Ellis, the follower, loyal but unstable. The Order, a cult of convenience, masking greed with ritual. He needed time, a distraction. And Victor Strand, he asked, watching Grayson's face. He taught you, didn't he? Grayson's smile faltered, just for a second. Strand was an inspiration, a mentor years ago. He showed me how to harness belief, how to make people obey. But he was weak, got caught. I'm better. Elias's heart sank. Strand's shadow loomed larger, a ghost he couldn't outrun. But he saw his chance. Cole, standing at the tunnel's edge, was shaking, her hand on her holster. Martha, Elias said, locking eyes with her. You're not like them. You gave me the drive. Help me now. Ellis lunged, knife raised, but Cole drew her gun, her voice breaking. Enough, Harold. The shot echoed, deafening in the tunnel. Ellis crumpled, blood pooling beneath him. Grayson roared, tackling Cole, but Elias rolled free, his bound hands grabbing Ellis's knife. He cut his ropes, adrenaline drowning the pain, and tackled Grayson, pinning him to the ground. You're done, Elias said, pressing the knife to Grayson's throat. Cole, bruised but standing, cuffed the mare, her face a mask of shame and resolve. Chapter 15. Ties to the old case that drove Elias out of the FBI. Elias sat in the sheriff's station, Clara and Mia safe in a hospital, their statements recorded. The tunnels had been a labyrinth, filled with relics of past victims, bones, carvings, and ritual tools. Grayson's confession, caught on Elias's recorder, was damning. Decades of murders orchestrated to maintain the Order's grip on Ashbourne, justified as sacrifices to Gallowmere's supposed hunger. The ledger and USB drive filled in the gaps, naming victims and payoffs, a ledger of blood. But it was Victor Strand's name that haunted Elias. Grayson's admission confirmed it. Strand had visited Ashbourne in the 1990s, mentoring a young Harold, teaching him the spiral's power. Elias's old case, number 4729, wasn't just a failure, it was the seed of this nightmare. Strand had escaped, leaving disciples like Grayson to carry on his work. The spiral was their shared language, a mark of control that stretched across decades, across states. Elias met with an FBI agent, a former colleague named Rachel Voss, in the station's conference room. You were right about Strand, she said, reviewing the evidence. He's still out there. We've got leads now thanks to you. A network, maybe national. The spirals popped up in other cases, Oregon, Nevada. Elias's chest tightened. I should have stopped him then. You stopped Grayson now, Voss said. Clara and Mia are alive because of you. It wasn't enough. Elias saw the faces of his dead agents, the victims in Gallomere's tunnels. He handed Voss the recorder and drive. Find him, Rachel, before he builds another Grayson. Cole resigned that morning, her badge left on her desk. Amos Reed vanished, his cabin empty, a spiral carved into the doorframe. Elias didn't blame him. Fear was a powerful leash, but he couldn't run from his own. Chapter 16. Truth Uncovered and the Price. It demands the FBI descended on Ashbourne, their vans tearing through the fog like avenging ghosts. The tunnels were excavated, revealing a charnel house. 30 bodies, some decades old, each marked with the spiral. The town's elite, council members, business owners, were arrested, their names in the ledger tying them to payoffs and silence. Ashbourne's tourist charm shattered, its streets empty as locals hid from the truth. Clara and Mia recovered slowly, their testimonies sealing the case. Clara's ledger, found hidden in a library vent, detailed the Order's finances, a trail of blood money. Mia's note, eyes in the dark, referred to Ellis, whose coroner role let him cover up murders for years. The town reeled, its identity fractured, but Elias felt no triumph. He'd solved the case, but the cost was etched in his bones. He stood at Galamir's edge, the forest silent, its secrets spilled but no less heavy. In his hand was his sketch of the spiral, now a map of his failure and redemption. He lit a match, watching the paper burn, the ashes scattering into the wind. Strand was still out there, a shadow Elias couldn't catch, but he'd hunt him, no matter how long it took. As he drove out of Ashbourne, the fog lifted, revealing a sky bruised with dawn. Galamir loomed in his rearview mirror, a reminder that some truths don't set you free, they just sharpen the blade. Elias pressed the gas, the road stretching toward a fight he wasn't done with.